Hello and welcome to Narrowcast Boxing. It's April 17th, 2019. Let's talk boxing. So, the biggest fight from over the weekend was a world title fight between Vasyl Lomachenko and Anthony Crolla, and this fight played out exactly how I expected. I said last week that Lomachenko was levels above Crolla, and this was very obvious from the opening bell. Lomachenko started off very aggressively, and he didn't really take a backward step in the fight. From early on, his footwork, his punch variety, and his ability to cut off the ring were all on display. Crolla was clearly very overwhelmed from the end of the second round. In the third round, Lomachenko started to really put a beating on Crolla and had him against the ropes at the end of the round. Jack Reese, the referee, called a standing 8 count, and that's a rule I'm not really a fan of in general. And the ring officials started to enter the ring at this point thinking the fight was called off. Lomachenko also seemed to think that the fight was over, and to be fair, the fight basically was over at that point, but it continued into the fourth round. Lomachenko continued to apply pressure and knocked Crolla clean out with a right hook to the temple. Lomachenko was clearly looking to make a statement with this performance, and he certainly looked like the best boxer in the world with the skills that he put on display. Because his style is what it is, he looked absolutely dazzling against Crolla. Moving forward, I think that Lomachenko really needs a big fight. He needs somebody like Mikey Garcia or Gervonta Davis to really reach the next level in his career. 135 is a pretty weak division in my opinion, and I don't really want to see Lomachenko face Richard Comey, even though it's another unification fight. That's probably the most likely fight to happen next, or maybe Luke Campbell, but it doesn't really elevate Lomachenko's status for me, but we'll see what happens. Last week I mentioned 3 fights, and I said that I would be skipping them. Not really because they were bad fights, but because I didn't really have any interest in them. I did, however, manage to watch one of them and was pleasantly surprised with the fight. And the 2 I skipped were Peter Quillin versus Caleb Truax, which ended in a no contest based on a headbutt, and Sergey Derevyanchenko versus Jack Kulke, which was a unanimous decision victory for Derevyanchenko. I actually heard that was quite a good fight, but the fight that I did actually manage to catch was Claressa Shields versus Christina Hammer, and I was very impressed with Claressa Shields. I'm fairly accepting of watching women's boxing. I'm not a huge fan, but I'm also not one of these people who disparages it. I've seen some good fights and some good fighters, and although the talent pool is seemingly pretty shallow, and I can only name a handful of women fighters, if someone like Katie Taylor or someone like Claressa Shields is fighting, then I won't really balk at it. But as far as the Shields versus Hammer fight, I scored only 1 round for Hammer. I thought Shields really dominated, and the skills that she displayed were very impressive. I saw very little of each fighter in the lead up to this. I predicted Shields to win based on very little information. I wasn't expecting the level of talent that she showed, though. If you haven't seen this fight, I would suggest it. I will definitely be keeping track of Shields moving on. In my opinion, apart from Lomachenko, this was probably the best performance from a fighter this past weekend. The final fight that I'll talk about is Jamie Munguia versus Dennis Hogan. I watched this fight the day after and saw what the outcome was before I saw the fight. One judge had it 114 to 114, and this was overruled by the scores of 115 to 113 and 116 to 112 for Munguia. I personally scored the fight 116 to 113 for Hogan. I said in my preview that I didn't really think that Munguia was an elite fighter at 154 pounds, and that I think that the other champions would beat him convincingly, and this fight really solidifies that for me. Both guys for this fight were really lacking a jab. They were mainly looking to just land big power shots. The action was pretty sloppy. There was a lot of holding, use of the head, rabbit punches, and not really much separating the two in terms of skill. I thought that the referee did a good job. Oftentimes in fights like this, you have a very overzealous referee who starts taking points away, usually from the B-side fighter. But I was glad that he warned both of them, but didn't involve himself unnecessarily. But as far as the results go, I'm not really surprised that Munguia got the nod, with him being the A side and the fight being in Mexico and with the crowd behind him. But I really don't think that he deserved the decision. It was a close fight with a few rounds that could have gone either way, I guess, but the decision kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I hope that they do a rematch, but I wouldn't really imagine Munguia is under any obligation outside of public pressure, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's the recap for this past weekend. I'll be doing a preview for the upcoming fights for this weekend, so keep an eye out for that. And with that said, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.